Hey everyone, Unit 522 here, and I hope all of you had a great weekend. Before we begin the stories, I just want to give a big thank you to Elflinlight Coda and Blue Spooky for collaborating with me on this video. For those of you who don't know, Elflin actually helped me out back when I first started telling scary stories, so I really would appreciate it if you went over to his channel and checked it out, and the same goes for Blue Spooky. We recently just hit 20,000 subscribers, and I gotta say that's absolutely amazing, and I want to personally thank all of you. I could not have done this without you. And also, if you guys are interested, I started a Q&A on my Midnight Shifter channel. I'll leave a link for that in the comment section. So without any further ado, please enjoy the true scary stories.
So this happened in early 2001. I'm using this throwaway account because to this day I still have no clue who this person was or why he was doing this to me. So when I was about 16, I had a car but no driver's license and no cell phone, and my mother kind of let me run wild and drive around on the weekends and do whatever I wanted. I lived in a very small town in the south that didn't have much going on, but everyone threw these big ass house parties each weekend. Me and my friend Carrie used to drive around crashing parties and getting wasted. It wasn't safe or smart, but we weren't very bright kids. So one night, Carrie and I are driving around from house to house looking for something to get into, and Carrie keeps saying that everywhere we go, she keeps seeing this same truck. She points it out to me, and it's a little green Nissan Frontier pickup truck, and I only know what that was because my mom's ex drove the exact same truck. In fact, every other guy in town where we were did. It was a really popular vehicle. You would see them everywhere, and that's exactly what I told her. I wrote it off as her being paranoid. So we finally find a good party to go to for a while and hung out and got wasted and decided to leave and hit up a Wendy's to get something to eat so we can sober up and head home. At this point it's about 2 a.m. and we're sitting in the Wendy's parking lot eating. How the parking lot is set up is you turn directly off the main road, the only main road in the town we're in, and left into the parking lot. If you go straight, there's another restaurant which closes around 9 most nights. So we're sitting in the car eating and facing the road, and the little green Nissan drives past the Wendy's towards the restaurant that's currently closed. The weird thing is the driver just stares us down the entire time he's driving by. The way he stared at us was horrifying. He looked like he wanted to kill us. Carrie starts yelling, "That's the fucking truck I've been seeing all night, and I swear this guy is following us." He loops around the other restaurant and drives by us again and continues doing this several more times while we sit there and think about what we need to do. The Wendy's is now closed. We're probably the last customers of the night, and the parking lot is all kinds of dark, and I don't want to get out of my car. About a mile up the road is a bright, well-lit 24-hour gas station where the night shift crew knows us. So I wait for him to drive out of the parking lot and wait for him to turn out. And thankfully, he goes the opposite direction that we need to go to get to the gas station. I peel out of the parking lot and haul ass towards the gas station, and lo and behold, there he is waiting at a stoplight. And he turns right and gets right behind us. For some reason, I want to see if he's really following us, so I turn off the main road and down a bunch of little side streets and back onto the main road, and he stays right on our ass the entire time. Carrie is screaming and terrified at this point. After getting back to the main road, we pull to the gas station, and the guy is driving in a circle around the gas station. I decided to call my mother. I can't call the cops because I'm underage and drunk and have no license. And the payphone is right by the road, in the only dark corner of the parking lot. This guy is driving circles around the gas station, so I lock Carrie in with my keys and I go inside. They know me, they have a phone. I know they'll let me use it. So I go inside and there's this middle-aged, very rough redneck lady working. She knows me and I ask to use the phone, and she says customers aren't allowed to use the phone and I need to use the payphone. And I just start crying and say this guy has been following us all night and I need to call my mom, and I'm too afraid to call the cops because I'm drunk, and the lady just loses it. She grabs the cordless phone and throws it at me and grabs a baseball bat from under the counter and takes off running out the door as I watch in both horror and amazement as she grabs a hold of the guy's truck door and sees driving and starts trying to hit him with the baseball bat. He speeds away and she falls on the ground and comes running back inside, and I'll never forget, she is out of breath and her clothes look ripped and dirty, and she just yells, "I don't fucking play games with people like that." That woman was my hero after that night. Every time I went back to that gas station that she worked, I thanked her and told her she saved my life. I called my mom, who thankfully had a cell phone. She had been on a date and went back to his place, and her date came with her. She drove me and Carrie home in a car, and her date drove my car home. So, I thought that was the end of it, but I started getting phone calls. I got 3 a day. One about 10 minutes before I left school each morning, one about 30 minutes after I got home from school, and one about 10:30 at night. Like clockwork, at the same time, every weekday. Never on the weekends because my mom was home, and I think he knew it. No one was ever there. I mentioned it to Carrie, and she told me she was getting the same calls. The calls continued until I moved out of my mom's house. I don't know if the calls were related or not, but I know my heart still skips a beat whenever I see that green Nissan, and whenever I get a phone call and there's no one on the other line. I have no idea who he was or what he wanted. Carrie thinks the drug dealer we both knew paid the guy to follow us, and the drug dealer was the one making the phone calls because we had a bad falling out with him a few days prior to all this. I don't think that was the case, though. The guy may have been a drug dealer, but that was just not in his character. When he wanted to scare people, he wanted them to know exactly why, and that it was coming from him.
So a few years back, during my senior year of high school, my stepdad made a very poor decision. His decision has caused a lot of pain and suffering for my mom and I, and we're both still in counseling for PTSD and anxiety disorders. Just for a little context, my parents got divorced when I was 7 years old. I'm also a female, if that matters to anyone. I was used to them dating other people, and I was actually very happy for my mom when she told me she met somebody new, until I met him. As soon as I met this guy, we'll call him Don, I had horrible feelings in my gut. Don was originally from Florida, and he moved to Kentucky right before he met my mom, leaving behind his ex-wife and son. He was a weirdo in every sense of the word, always trying to start an argument over petty topics, or walked around shirtless with his strange nipple rings out while my friends were over. Although he was weird, he was never threatening or abusive at all towards me or my mom. That is, until one night, right before my mom's birthday. I remember the night clearly. It was my best friend's birthday, and I was waiting for her to come pick me up to take me to dinner. My mom and Don also had plans to go out and watch the UK-Florida basketball game. As an only child, my mom has always been very protective over me, so she wanted to wait until I left with my friend before she left with Don. This, for whatever reason, really pissed Don off, and he stormed out of the house without her. I left shortly after. I returned about 4 or 5 hours later. The game had been over for some time at this point, and Don still hadn't come home yet. My mom acted very weird and nervous when I asked about him, and just ushered me off to go to sleep. As I was sleeping, I was woken up by my mom screaming my name. Obviously disoriented, I groped around for my phone, thinking I had overslept and was late for school. When I checked the time, though, it was near midnight. My mom screamed my name again and told me to shut my door and call 911. This is pretty much when shit hit the fan. I started freaking out and jumped up to slam my door and lock it. Right as I did this, 3 gunshots flew through my bedroom door, narrowly missing me. I grabbed my phone and jumped to the other side of my bed and laid on the ground, hoping to avoid any more bullets. I barely had time to get out my address and inform them that someone was trying to kill me before I heard my mom scream one last time before 2 more gunshots rang out. Everything fell silent, and I had a horrible feeling that someone had just murdered my mom. I got up from the floor when I heard the person begin to throw themselves against my door in an attempt to break it. All that was running through my mind was getting to my mom and staying alive. Eventually, he broke my door down, and I was horrified to see that it was my stepdad. His eyes were glazed over as he grabbed me by my shirt collar and put the barrel of the gun to my head. I screamed and fought as he said over and over,
"Is this what you wanted?"
At this point, a lot of the details get hazy, as I had a ridiculous amount of adrenaline pumping through me. But I somehow managed to back him up and push him down onto my bed. I used both of my hands to hold his hand with the gun away from me, and tried with all my might to get it up against his head so I could blow his brains out. We struggled like this for a while, until my mom came in, gunshot wound in the neck and the stomach, and laid across the gun while telling me to run. I hysterically ran out my front door and up the street to my neighbors. I scared them half to death, but I was able to redial 911 and tell them exactly what was happening. As I was at my neighbor's, my mom was still in my room with my stepdad. She says this is when she became very weak from blood loss and rolled off him onto the ground. She asked why he was doing this, and he simply put the gun in his mouth. She took this opportunity to run out the front door right into the arms of a police officer. In the end, the police ended up having a standoff with Don as he barricaded himself inside. He made the mistake of pointing a gun at them, and they blew half of his dick off, and then arrested him. He's currently serving 45 years in prison, and to this day, will give no reason as to why he decided to do this to us. In all honesty, I don't care. My mom and I lived through it, and we've grown much closer because of it. We actually got matching tattoos reading, "Strength comes from the madness we survive." So Don, I really hope everyone in prison enjoys you and your half penis.
A couple of years ago, I found myself in a very disturbing situation. I was getting off work at my student internship in Charlotte, North Carolina, and it had been snowing all day. Now, for all of you guys who live in the South, you know it's a big deal when it calls for snow and the grocery stores are raided the nights before. I decided to go get some groceries to enjoy with my girlfriend, now wife, since the mayhem had ended and only people like me who had trucks or all-terrain vehicles could get around. I went into Walmart and got the groceries I needed and started my way back to my truck. It had started to snow harder and there was already 5 to 7 inches on the ground. It was around 12 in the afternoon. I was daydreaming about sledding and watching movies the next couple of days with my girlfriend. Just then, as I almost reached my truck, I was jolted by the act of someone grabbing my arm. As I turned around, I saw an older-looking lady who was maybe 5'6". She asked me if I had cigarettes. Now, I don't smoke, so I told her I didn't, and I turned back toward my truck. Again, she gently tugged on my arm, and then she told me that she just got here from Alabama on a bus with her granddaughter and dog, and she was here for breast cancer treatment and wanted money for a hotel. Again, I honestly told her that I had no money on me, which I purposely do because I don't like donating to people's drug habits and would rather get people food myself if that's what they really want. At this point, she asked, "Do you know the area well?" Wanting to get out of this situation, I told her I didn't, which was a lie. Thinking that she would now leave me alone, she then asked, "Oh, okay. Well, since the weather is so bad, you wouldn't mind driving me to my hotel so I can meet up with my granddaughter and her dog who are waiting in the hotel lobby, would you? It's right up the road here. I can show you." Me being Christian, I was always taught to help people out, so even though everything at this moment told me to deny this woman again, I said sure. Since I was raised on the rule never judge a book by its cover. Plus, I'm a 6-foot male. I figured I could take her if things got dicey. So she jumped in my truck against all odds, and the next thing I know, she's smoking a cigarette in my truck. I told her politely to please put it out. Being nervous, I missed my first red flag when she asked me for a cigarette, since she obviously had some. She obliged and threw the cigarette out the window to my dismay. So we started driving up the road towards her hotel, at which I was on high alert. At that moment of going through worst-case scenarios in my head, I noticed her fumbling through her purse, searching for something, and looking out of the corner of her eye at me, at which I told her, "Just so you know, I have a gun in my truck, so don't try anything crazy." Now I did have a gun, but it was a shotgun that I neglected to get out of my back seat a couple of days earlier, and in reality, this would do me no good if she pulled a gun on me at that moment. At this point, she stopped messing around in her purse and pulled out her cell phone from her pocket. She looked at me and said, "Actually, do you mind taking a detour? I need to pick up some money from some friends." Okay, at this point in time, red flags were firing off, but again, never judging a book by its cover kept running through my mind. So I told her that was fine, but we had to make it quick because I needed to get back home. At that moment, she dialed someone on the phone and said, "Yeah, this guy's bringing me over to get the stuff. You are ready, right?" At that point, I asked her to talk to the person. When I answered the phone, a man who sounded like he's been chain-smoking since birth said, "Hello?" I started asking him questions like, "What's your name?" And I asked him if he indeed knew of any hotels nearby. He seemed to stumble over his words, then said he had to go. At this point, I should have gotten a clue and kicked her out of my car, especially after watching so many horror movies. This is when the person goes against their gut and pays for it. But for fear of her actually telling the truth and me feeling like a terrible person, I decided to go on. At this point, we turned down the street, and I saw a cop car sitting there off the side. I wanted to drop her off with a cop, but I would feel terrible if she was actually telling the truth. So I passed the cop, and with a weird eerie smile on her face, she said, "Glad he's here. Now I feel safe." Now as we entered the apartment complex, I saw how run down it was. It looked to be a place where heavy drug traffic was going on. Just a very unsettling place, even during the snow. As I parked outside the place she said was her friend's, she told me, "Okay, I'll go get the guy and be back." At this, I was very unsettled by everything. Things just didn't seem right. She saw my facial expression of just wanting to get the heck out of Dodge. And to this, she sneered at me, saying something along the lines of me being a terrible person if I left her here, in this weather, under her condition. At this, I got mad. After all, I went out of my way to help her. As I waited, I started to think about things that could happen. Like, what if she brought back a gun, or worse? At that moment, I saw 3 guys coming towards my truck. She had set me up to be robbed or something, because these guys were big, and one of them had something behind his back, which I couldn't see. At that moment, I put my truck in reverse and took off. Thank God for 4-wheel drive. I looked back at them chasing me, and to see what was hidden behind the one guy's back. It was a crowbar. I don't know what would have happened to me, but looking back, I see how dumb and blind I was. There was no hotel anywhere close to the area. The nearest was about 20 minutes away. Had I waited for the guys to get to my truck, they probably would have beaten me or robbed me, or worse. I thank God every day that I made it out of there and was able to get married and tell this event. After that, I have never been to that Walmart ever again, or the area for that matter. A couple of months later, I told a coworker this story, and he told me that a year ago, the same lady tried the same thing to him, but he declined altogether. Smart move on his part. So be careful who you help out, because some people will take advantage of you, or even worse. To the horrible lady who lied about having breast cancer to trick people into awful things, I hope you get what's coming to you, and let's never meet again. Thank you very much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please share, like, and comment, and become part of the Unity by hitting the subscribe button. If you have a scary story that you would like to share, be sure to send it to my email or post it on the free horror stories subreddit. Consider donating to this channel and be sure to follow me on Twitter. And until next time, stay spooky and never forget, there's always a reason to be afraid.